All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Joseph Miranda, broker and owner of Miranda Executive Realty, here for our latest installment of Ask the Broker. This is part 3 of our 2-part series. We may have 4 parts in this 2-part series of Ask the Broker, how to be an effective buyer's agent. So, as usual, let's do a little housekeeping before we get started. Number 1, shameless plug time. If you're watching a recording of this, you can always scan this QR code, learn more about our company, schedule an appointment from there. There will also be a link in the comments below to schedule an appointment as well. Number 2, disclaimer. So I am the broker and owner of Miranda Executive Realty. Been a broker since 2012. We've had this brokerage 2019, I believe, was the inception of this company. So we've been doing this for a little while. Every once in a while, we will, talk about some legal aspects. Every once in a while, we'll talk about, accounting or finance, mortgage. This is definitely going to talk about mortgage. This is going to talk about appraisals. This is going to talk about inspections. But I am neither of those. I am simply a real estate broker. So what we tell you is always, seek legal and professional advice before taking any actions. This is all just my opinions. It's how I operate my business. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it here. Let's talk about a buyer's journey, part 3 of our 2-part series again, on how to become an effective buyer's agent. So what have we already talked about? We've talked about lead generation. We've talked about lead follow-up. We've talked about going on appointments. Right, all 3 very important aspects. If you're going to be a buyer's agent, you can't have one really without the other. Right, it's going to be hard to go on an appointment if you don't have a lead to go on an appointment with. Sometimes it's hard to go on an appointment if you don't continue to follow up with that lead initially. Right, because if you're not following up, somebody else is going to be following up. So today we're going to talk about writing and negotiating contracts, or really just more about negotiating contracts, and then we're going to talk about closing the sale. Right, so how to get your contract from once you have the contract, how to get from negotiating to getting that sale closed. So we kind of did that quick recap there. Some of the things in today's training is going to be reading and understanding the contract, all of the addenda. Right, this one goes without saying. I think we spoke about this in the last training, to read, understand all contract and addenda. If it's your first time doing it, then reading it is a must, right? Getting a pre-approval, which is really a must if your customer is going to be seeking financing. We'll talk about contingencies. We'll talk about making sure you have a clean and complete offer, and then tracking timelines. So, for starters, effective versus executed. What's the difference? A lot of times when we get a complete and signed offer, we send it to the other agent or the other side, and we say, okay, here's the fully executed contract. The proper term would actually be an effective contract, right? So an executed contract means that all of the terms have been met. So if you have a real estate contract, all of the contingencies that you have the loan approval, you have association, you have inspection, the deposit. What that contract, actually a purchase contract, is executed at closing. Right, when you hit that final date, that final contingency, which is your closing date, that's when the contract is executed. That means every term in that contract is completed. Prior to that, when you have a contract with all of those terms in there, right, your dates, your timelines, everybody's signed, everybody has initialed, that's actually an effective contract. Right, so effective just meaning that everybody's agreed to terms, and now we're going to start going through this process. But that is not an executed contract, right? So semantics, yeah, probably syntax, maybe, right? But when you're dealing with contracts, when you're dealing with anything legal, these things matter, right? Words do matter. Is it going to be the end of the world? Probably not, right? So let's say you have an effective contract, right? When you have your effective contract, the first thing you do is you're going to send out an email, right? And who does it go to, right? So it's going to go to anybody that is really relevant in this transaction, right? Maybe it goes to the lender, right? Maybe it goes to the title company. Definitely the final copy needs to go to the buyer, right? Does it go to the listing side, right? Everybody that's relevant to this contract is going to need to get a copy of that right away, right? We have a certain preference for the way that we do things in this office, right? So, even the way that, you write the subject line, right? Buyer name, PF, purchase from, the seller name, right? And then the address and, transaction details, right? This is going to help it easier when you're going to search for an email from that, that, you can just kind of scan the subject lines and you're going to see that every single one should be like that, right? At some point you can copy and paste, or, I think we've had closings where it's just been that same email thread through the entire transaction. So you've got, written history of the entire thing, right? If you're on the seller side, seller, ST, sale to, buyer's name, right? But right now we're talking about buyer, so it's buyer, purchase from, P/F, seller. That's the way we do it in this office. You'll see different variations of it. Title companies do this a lot, but this is how, we'll know, okay, our customer's in the front, we have buyer, right? The other customer is in the back, right? Every document that we create, we want to put a header on there. We have, blank documents with headers in there. And then we also have a glossary or a way that we actually, what we name every contract. Every contract has its own name, and we always name them the same in our files. You don't have to do it. There's a lot of different ways to do that. But, for us, again, it helps your eyes be drawn to where they need to go. It helps you to, faster find things. If, as is, 112, 2025 to whatever, right, 125 Main Street, like whatever that needs to be, you're going to be able to find that and you're going to know what it is right away, right? You could name it purchase contract. You can name it, contract. You can name it effective contract. You shouldn't call it the executed contract because of what we talked about before, but you can put in there whatever you want, right? Next up, you want to put in a timeline. In this beginning email, right? Hey, we're under contract. Congratulations. You want to put in a timeline, right? Look at, look when you send this timeline to everybody, right? They're going to be in agreement or they're going to argue with you on that timeline. But you want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. When do these contingencies, basically come to an end, right? We're all subject to human error. So, if somebody emails you back, just look at it, right? Important reminder, when you send documents, do not send anything with personal identification information, PII. I've been doing this for a long time. I've dealt with a lot of contracts. And I can't think of one time as a real estate agent that I have needed somebody's social security number. I can literally not think of one time. I always tell my customers, I say, don't give me your social security number. I don't, identifiable information. Yes. I have never needed somebody's social security number. If I'm representing the landlord, then if the landlord wants it, the landlord can collect it directly from the renter. But I will not collect that social security number, not even for my landlord. I will get it for them. I have a property management company, so we do collect them, but it's in a separate process. I don't store social security numbers. I don't keep them in my email. I don't keep them anywhere, right? Other stuff is fine. What I see a lot of agents do, and I see this a lot, they send a rental application with the social security number on there. For whatever reason, rental applications want to grab a social security number. We do not collect social security numbers ever. If we need to do a credit background, if we need to do that check, I send them a link. So here's a link. You can even pay for it in the link, right? Here's the link. Pay for it in the link. Then they can enter it into the computer, and it's not in my database. If somebody's identity is going to get stolen, it's not going to be because of me, right? It will not be because of me, and it should not be because of anybody that's in this office, right? Like, we do not take social security numbers as realtors. We do not need a social security number from anybody, right? Wire instructions. This is huge, right? This is really, really a very big thing. Knock on wood, it's never happened in this office, but I have met agents in real life that it has happened to them. Let me skip ahead one slide well, actually, yeah, we don't need to come back to this slide anyway. So on the next slide, you'll see an example. This is a real life example of emails that we've received on our transaction coordinating side that are like phishing or scam emails, not spam, right? Scam emails. And basically what they do is, so this one, the good news about our company is we have mandatory two-factor authentication on all of the company email addresses, right? And then we've got extra security layers because you know, we pay extra money to have security layers, you know, on the company email addresses. Looks at your IP address, like it, you know, and you may have received it where, you know, it'll, you know, pop something up and tell you. But this right here is an actual email that we received. It was phishing. They know that we're a real estate company, so they grab, you know, the email. They find the email somewhere, and right here, right, please find the final CD attached. Right, don't click those links. Like, number one, if you don't, like, if you look at the subject line, right, and the subject line doesn't have identifiable information in there, don't. Right. If you look at the email, if that's not the title company that you're working with, if the name is not somebody that you've worked with, right, question it. Do not open that, right? This looks like a legit email to me, right? This looks totally legit. And even in another one, they put a phone number, right? We've got another one here that we received, and there's a phone number in there, right? And you know, if you call the number, it goes to a like a disconnected line, right? But call the number, right? You know, but don't, under any circumstance, click the links. Don't. Yeah, this one has a settlement statement in it. There's no reason to click it and look at it because it's a scam, right? We as agents, you know, we're constantly being targeted because we deal with a high value transaction. A lot of, not a lot, but you know, what the other thing they do is they'll hack an agent's email address, their email, and they don't do anything with the email except they monitor it, right? This is why we have two-step authentication. This is why we have all of the other layers and safeguards that we have for the email. And then what they do is they'll create a URL similar to the title company, right? So titlecompanyflorida.com, right? This one might just say titlecoflorida.com or titlecompanyfl.com. They'll create a similar URL, and they'll take the same name, right? Susan Landry. So maybe this was the actual name, and they'll copy all of it, and it'll look totally legit. And then they'll send out an email to yourself or your customer or both, telling them, we need you to wire these funds. And they'll make it sound urgent usually, so that, you know, hey, we really need you to do this right away. That, you know, this file's in jeopardy. Please go to your bank right away. Here's the wiring instructions, right? And once that money's gone, it's gone. So make sure your customers know before they wire a penny. Number one, call you, verify it with the agent. Number two, call the title company, right, from a number that they've already spoken to the title company from, and verify it. You as the agent want to verify it, you also can verify it. But this is a huge, huge thing. And to me, if I was the reason, right, if I was the reason that somebody lost their escrow deposit, or if they lost, you know, earnest money deposit, I don't know. I would feel like I'd have to figure out a way to compensate that, right? Like, because, and it can be a lot of money. It might take a long time to compensate. Maybe you never could. I don't know. But this is a really important one, but it's also pretty easy to get in front of. Have the conversation with your customer up front, right? Just make sure you're having that conversation with the, you know, customer at the beginning. So, you know, the other thing, etiquette, there it is right there on our in our agent resources, right? Just put this at the bottom of your email, right? Make sure, right? That way it's there and hopefully they read it, right? And if they don't, still just have the conversation. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, yeah, we're under contract. Right? Go talk to them about whatever you talk to them about, and just let them know, hey, you know what? Don't send any wires without wire instructions without confirming it with myself and the title company first. Right? Make sure that it is confirmed. Right? Email etiquette. Right? So make sure, number one, if you say please see attached, make sure you attach it. Right? We talked about naming the documents. Right? COA, certificate of authenticity. That's important, but I don't give the certificate of authenticity if my buyer or seller signs. I don't give the COA to the other side because the COA includes their contact information. I don't want the other side having my customer's contact information, right? If they want to question the validity of it, then yeah, okay, maybe, right? But it could have been any email that signed it. They can't really, that's more for you and your customer and making sure that, you're in compliance and that your customer actually signed it, right? If somebody complains or the customer complains, I didn't sign that. Well, now you can give that to them, right? That's not to give to the other side and say, oh, here, my customer actually signed, because what did you do? You now just gave them your customer's email address. And what's to stop them now from putting your customer into the database and after closing, start dripping emails on them, right? And then if you didn't do a great job keeping up, maybe they forget that you're the one that sold it to them. Somehow in their mind, they start believing that this other person sold it to them. Not a good idea, right? Make sure that, you're CCing and BCCing the appropriate parties, right? Property disclosure, lender doesn't need that. Don't send things to the lender that the lender doesn't need, right? Only send things to the lender that they actually need, right? I know we want to disclose everything, we want to do everything, but unless the lender asks for it, then they don't need it, right? You start doing everything, now the lender has to deal with it. You just made everybody's life, everybody's job harder, right? Don't let your client contact the other client or the other agent, right? Like you have to keep all of this. It's got to be separated. And then reply all or reply, right? Which one are you going to use? When you receive an email, sometimes you have to hit reply all because everybody needs to be in the loop. But sometimes maybe you just need to respond to the person that sent it and they copied way too many people into it. Again, the lender situation, title situation, attorney situation. You don't need everybody involved in every single part of this transaction. Make sure you're only, CCing who needs to be CC'd into the transaction. Make sure you only hit reply all if it does pertain to everybody in there, right? We may have email threads with, our side of the transaction and the title company, our side of the transaction and the lender, right? Our side, our agent, the other agent, and the lender. Our agent, their agent, and title. Our agent, their agent, title, lender. Like you may have different situations, right? If there's a TC, always include your TC. If the other side has a TC, right? What would you include that? If the agent's in it, probably include that TC in there as well, right? So you've got to use some discernment when you're creating the emails, when you're replying all, right? So, all right. So let's go through some of the areas that come up in a contract, right? Number one, escrow. The escrow deposit. Good faith, earnest money. So this is where I talked about earlier, right? What are some of the pitfalls, some things that we need to make sure of, right? Verify. And educate your customer about, escrow, escrow fraud that's out there, right? Get the money to the title company as soon as absolutely possible, and get the letter in your hand as soon as absolutely possible. Because this is not something that your customer should be putting off, right? This is the first contingency, right? So this is also their first opportunity to be in default of the contract, right? You don't want to go into default of the contract, 72 hours into it. It's not a good look. It's not a good play. If they need more time, then get the extension, right? Make sure everything is correct. Read the escrow letter and make sure that it actually says that the title company is in receipt, or whoever's holding it is in receipt and actually has the money in their possession, right? You need to make sure. We've seen escrow letters where it doesn't even state that they have it. All it states is that this is the escrow amount, right? So read it and make sure, because if something happens, you have to protect your customer, right? You have to protect your customer. And very important, agents cannot hold escrow. I know that seems simple, but just keep in mind, escrow needs to be held by, title company. Our brokerage doesn't hold escrow, but we do have title companies and attorneys that will hold it for you. Worst case, if you have the buyer, it doesn't need to come with, it can go with any title company, the title company that you choose, right? So negotiation tip for escrow, right? Number one, always keep in mind that escrow is a liability for your buyer. If you drop the ball, right, the earnest money is compensation for the seller if you mess up, right? Number two, give as little as possible. There's no reason to give, the entire, say they have to put 20% down. Well, why would you put 20% into escrow, right? You don't have to put the entire down payment into escrow, right? You can put whatever portion. Like my rule is 3%. Somebody asks me, how much should I put in escrow? I would say 3%. Now, if you want to be super competitive, if you're in a multiple offer situation, markets like 2021, 2022, people would put, they would, you had to do things. But if you're not in like a competitive situation, just, look at that money as, okay, something goes wrong. If I drop the ball, if I mess up, this is the money that I'm putting at risk for my customer. So, what's the lowest amount that I can put and still, look serious to the seller at the other side? If I see escrow, if I'm on the listing side, I see escrow, earnest money deposit for $1,000. I'm kind of like, that doesn't feel serious to me, right? Like it has to be enough to me as a listing agent, it has to be enough that if the buyer were to lose it, it would hurt them a little bit, because that's their incentive. That's the buyer's incentive to see this contract through, either to that contingency that breaks the deal, or, really preferably that they see the deal all the way to closing. But there's no reason to, to give, huge amounts of escrow unless it's for, to make your offer look more competitive, right? The other thing is you can give escrow in portions. You could give, 5,000 now and then 5,000 after inspection. You could do 5,000 now, 5,000 after inspection, 5,000 after loan commitment. Like you can do it whenever you want, right? Based on days, based on numbers, right? You can do it on day 3 and day 15, day 2 and, day 22. Like it doesn't really matter. You don't have to give it all up front. And I wouldn't, right? I wouldn't give it all up front, right? So, after that, we're going to go to the association, if there is an association, right? And, there's a little bit of diligence that you need to do. Number one, before you start showing condos, make sure that you know what their, that your buyer actually qualifies for this, right? Make sure that your buyer is actually going to qualify for, or that they don't have restrictions that they're looking for, right? If your buyer has a 60-pound dog, then you're not just going to go show them, any condo building. You're going to make sure that, the restrictions don't block, a 60-pound dog from moving in. Get the application in right away. Once the application's in, get with the management company and make sure that that the application is in and that it's complete. Don't just take your customer's word for it. Yeah, it's in, it's turned in, we're all good, right? Because it might not be in, or it could be in and it could be incomplete, and the association's trying to get a hold of your customer or somebody else to get it completed. Sometimes there's a seller's portion that needs to be filled out in the application as well, right? So once it's in, contact management. Hi, management. My customer so-and-so turned in an application. Do you have everything you need? Yes. Do you need anything from the seller? No. Okay, great. Right now, let the timeline for their approval begin. Usually they're going to take, well, not usually, but some of them will take the full 30 days to actually approve, even if they've approved, right? And once they schedule the interview, the customer is assumed approved. They're not going to do an interview for a customer that they denied based on some restriction, right? The credit minimum, age limit, income, income minimum, like whatever it is. They're not going to deny somebody and then say, oh, we'll come in for the interview. Once they've scheduled the interview, you can assume your customer's approved. However, they're going to go over rules and regulations, and if your customer goes in there acting a fool, then that, they still don't have this certificate of approval until that's in hand, right? It's their approval to lose. So make sure they understand, hey, don't say anything stupid, right? When you're on the buyer side, right? When you're on the buyer side, get all your documents, right? Here's a list. Don't really need to go over any, all of these. This is just, these have all been there for a while. The column, declaration, articles of incorporation, we all know those, right? The new ones, you want to get 12 months of meeting minutes because of all these assessments that are going on, SIRS, milestone turnover report, get all that, right? But negotiation tip. So do you need all of that, right? Like for me, I don't think any of my customers have ever read the articles of incorporation, right? I don't know that they've ever read a declaration of condominium, right? Bylaws, important, right? Rules and regulations, important. So negotiation tip, let's just skip all the way down to the bottom one. This has saved me and even agents in our office more than once, where you get to a point where you're out of contingencies and something happens, right? Something happened and, somebody, whatever. And now the buyer can't close on the contract or can't close, on the, close on the property. They can't close, right? Well, sometimes strategically, I won't have a full set of condo docs when I'm on the buyer side. And I'll explain it to my customer, right? Or maybe we can find them somewhere else. Sometimes they're in the MLS and in the forms. But so by law, a buyer gets 3 days to inspect condo docs. This is an inspection period that is not waivable. When you look at the condo writer, you'll see they cannot waive this right. They could say, I waive my right to inspect the condo docs for 3 days, but they can't waive it, right? So if something happens, this is your emergency get out of jail free card right here, right? So the minute something happens, what do? You don't say, hey, we have a problem. My buyer's going to get, denied the mortgage or whatever it is, right? You don't get on your computer and start saying that. You say, hey, I just realized you didn't send me over the articles of incorporation and the declaration of condominium. Can you send those to me? Right? You get them. Send them to your customer, review them. And now they're inspecting them, right? Well, 3 days to inspect. You can cancel in those 3 days. So, sometimes strategically, we just won't ask for them, right? We just don't follow up on it, right? But 3 days, this is a very, very important contingency. This is something I've seen, I don't know, half a dozen times in my career, has saved a buyer from losing their deposit because they didn't get the full. I've even had an attorney visited my BNI chapter one time, and about, 3 or 4 days later, she called me and she said, hey, here's the situation. The buyer's about to lose their, whatever. What can we do? And this was the question I asked. I said, is it a condo? Yes. Did they receive their full condo docs? Let me go find out, right? She found out they didn't get their condo docs. They got out of the contract, right? She should have bought me lunch. She didn't, but that's neither here nor there, right? Maybe I should have negotiated better. I don't know. And then just make sure that, you give the buyer enough time to submit the application. Condo association applications can be very, there could be a lot, right? There could be a lot of requirements, a lot of documents. So, this is another one. I think the contract defaults to 5 days. I don't know. But this is one that you need to watch that timeline. If you need more time, just get an extension, right? Don't just be like, oh, it'll be fine, right? Because the minute there's another problem, well, your buyer's in default. There are deadlines and timelines on these for a reason. Do not put your buyer in default under any circumstance. Even if the agent says, don't worry about it, we're not going to take the deposit. Let's just get this done. Let's just get it closed, right? No, because it's not your money, it's your buyer's money, and you guard it with your life, right? All right, up next, inspections, right? Inspections this is where most contracts, well, not most, appraisals too, but a lot of contracts begin to run into issues, right? Number one, get the inspection scheduled right away. After you sent out your blast email to everybody, congratulations, here's the timeline. You know, you CC'd, you BCC'd, you changed the names, done everything. Recommend an inspector or 2 or 3 to your customer. Get it done right away, right? The expectation that we have for an inspector is that he's going to do a great job, right? We expect it. Find every little problem that you can about this house. I need to know everything, every little drip, every little drop, every bug that you see, and make sure that the customer knows about it. You're going to tear this house apart, top to bottom, front to back, inside out, right? But what you're not going to do is make a mountain out of a molehill, right? Do not make it sound like, the flapper on the toilet, gets stuck open, and, don't make it sound like they need to replace their entire plumbing, right? Don't be the hero. An inspector is here to give facts, not opinions, right? Not whatever. If it was me, I wouldn't buy this, right? Well, nobody asked you, right? So do a great job. Make sure they know everything, but do not make a mountain out of a molehill. And just remember that an inspector's estimates may not be accurate, right? Usually they're on the high end. Anna, you had a question or thought?
Yes, I did. Where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line between getting the best info for the buyer in order to for them to be fully aware of all the items relating to the inspection on the house and qualifying for insurance?
I mean, it has to be an honest inspection, right? Like that's the number one thing. So that's why, the expectation is that they're going to do a great job and disclose everything. Insurance, that's another hurdle. Yeah, the 4-point and the wind mitigation, I guess, is what you're talking about. What is that normally? The roof that normally becomes the issue. And sometimes
and the roofs and all the openings and the roof. Yeah.
Yeah. So openings are hard, because I can't think of any time that we've ever negotiated for like a seller to install impact, all the way around. But the roof, sometimes we will get a second opinion. And I think we touch on this maybe in the next slide, that, you start with your general inspection. And well, let's maybe jump ahead here real quick. So you start with your general inspection, and then we also have to recommend additional inspections to our customers. So let's say the house was built in, there's a lot of old houses down here in South Florida, right? So let's say the house was built in 1965. Well, you probably should also do a sewer cam inspection, right? And yeah, the roof may not exactly, fit. So in those cases, we would do those inspections separately, right? So, or not separately, but I'm sorry, consecutively, or is it concurrently. We're going to run those inspections side by side. So sometimes the inspector will have recommendations. Hey, we're going to do a roof inspection, and we're going to do the plumbing cam inspection. We're going to do a termite or wood destroying organism inspection at the same time, and that's great, right? But other times they don't, and we have to find our own people. For the roof, let's say the roof doesn't meet the qualifications for insurance. Well, if you had a roofer do a roof inspection, you can always ask them, say, hey, are there repairs that I can do? Because it's 5+ years life, if I'm recalling correctly. So if you call the roofer, and we're dealing with this right now, actually, on another agent in this office, that if the seller is right now preparing to do repairs to the roof right now in order to give it 5+ years, and then once those are done, the roofer will give us a letter, a new inspection, with a letter that says that it has 5+ years. So I think those professional inspections, in addition to like the general property inspection, are really, really important. Like for me, the big one is a sewer cam. That's the really big one to me. Like if you're dealing with an old house, a sewer cam is an absolute must. You've got to do a sewer cam, because the last thing you really want is to receive that phone call. Hey, we just moved in. We did, we were doing a load of laundry while my son was taking a shower, and all of a sudden, you know, stuff started bubbling up in the shower, right? And that does happen. So, you know, these other inspections at the same time are really important. And then big repairs, you know, AC issues. Yeah, maybe there's there's openings, you know, some issues there. Get the specialists in to do the inspection on that, right? Sprinklers, make sure your sprinklers are inspected. There's a lot. But the pool, wouldn't you get a separate pool inspection? Because how much would it cost if there's a crack in the Diamond Bright or the Marsite or whatever, the Gunite, right? Whatever the pool is made out of, like if there's a crack in there, how much does it cost to fix it, if it can be fixed at all, right? So all of these things, you need to bring specialists out for these individual things. And it could be a very expensive inspection. It could be $1,000 plus inspection, right? But how much is the repair if you miss it? Yeah, Anna, you're like, yeah, exactly. So sewer line had cracks, and then the pool had cracks. Those are things you don't want your buyer to inherit, right? You don't want your buyer to inherit those. You're better off getting a credit, or not a credit, I'm sorry, having the seller repair it prior to closing. Repair it, re-inspect it, clear the addendum, right? That's what it is. Would you send that to the lender? I wouldn't. I wouldn't send that to the lender. Right? You know, I don't know if you're supposed to or not, but I've never heard a lender say, hey, make sure you send me all of your repair addenda, right? Like the lenders don't say that. You don't need to. Why? Because once it's done, it's not an issue. It might be an issue now, right? And it poses a threat now, but we're dealing with it now. It's not an issue anymore, right? You know, so just, you know, make sure of that. So, you know, get it scheduled. Review it with the customer. Don't hide anything. Preface to the inspector. Do a great job, but don't make issues where there are no issues. And then get your addendum right away, because if it's not in writing, then it doesn't exist, right? So if there is a repair or credit, I prefer repairs if I'm on the buyer side personally, because I don't want my buyer to deal with it, right? And then just re-inspect, make sure it's good. Put an inspection time frame in that addendum. Right, that inspection time frame should be, right, seller agrees to repair, you know, the pool by, you know, within 2 weeks on this date. Buyer will have, you know, 2 days to inspect upon completion, 3 days to inspect. You don't need a lot of time, right? Then you get the person back out. Looks good, cool, great, all good. Let's close. Now let's close, right? So the other thing, the first bullet point right here, right? Your initial offer is based on anything you saw visually, right? The inspection is not time to negotiate new carpet. In my opinion, this is opinion. You do it how you want. But in my opinion, I would not try to negotiate new carpet after the inspection. I would not try to negotiate paint. I wouldn't look and say, oh, but it needs all new light fixtures because these ones are you know, from the 70s and they're really ugly. I saw that. It would not be a time when I would try to negotiate a new countertop in the kitchen. Maybe appliances if they're not working right. But if they're working, me as the listing agent, I don't care if they're ugly, they work, right? If you thought they were ugly, you should have negotiated that with your original offer, right? That should have been something that was argued in the beginning. Yeah, you know what? I know you want, you know, $350. We're offering $348 because your appliances are ugly as dirt, right? Negotiate the visuals up front. The inspection's really for mechanicals. It's the mechanical aspects of the house. Right? Is it sound, you know, leak proof? The foundation, is it structural, you know, structurally sound? Like all of that. It's not for visuals. If you saw it, you can't negotiate it, in my opinion. Right? Don't come to me as a listing agent and say, oh, we want the front door painted. Because, you know, why? Because it's dirty and ugly. I don't care. Does it open and close? Does it seal? Right? Like that's what the inspection's for. Now, if it's, I don't know, if they see rot and, you know, like wood destroying organisms in it, maybe it's different, right? You didn't maybe necessarily readily see that, right? The other rule, right? What do attorneys do? They start high and then, ask. They ask for, you start when you ask for something, start as high as possible, right? Electrical panel needs to be replaced. We want $2,500 for electric panel, right? Might not cost $25. You say $3,000. I don't know, right? Whatever it is, start high with all your numbers, because you can always negotiate down, right? But that's what attorneys do when they're negotiating with insurance companies and everybody else. They'll send a ridiculous number. Now, don't put it so ridiculous that you lose credibility, right? You have to be able to argue it, right? And say, oh, well, you know, we need this 1,400 square foot house tented. It's going to cost us $10,000, right? Like, you don't have any credibility at that point. Keep yourself credible, but start high, right? Know the difference between credit and repair. Do you want to credit or do you want to repair? For example, an air conditioner. If it's working right, but it's old, maybe a credit is in order because they're probably not going to replace it and it doesn't need repairs. Hey, you know what? It's old. You know, we want a, you know, $2,000 credit because it's going to need to be replaced. If on the listing side, I'll say, we'll give you a home warranty, right? Put it in writing. Everything needs to be in writing, literally everything, right? So what about the mortgage, right? What about the mortgage? Definitely areas that we need to address, you know, with the mortgage. Number one, in the beginning of the process, you're also negotiating with your customer, right? And when you're negotiating with them, you want to make sure that they're actually pre-approved. Is a pre-qualification okay? I don't know. That's up to you. Is nothing okay? No verification? No, nothing okay? I don't know. Again, that's up to you. I wouldn't do it because you stand to waste your time with somebody who's never going to get approved and never going to close, right? Like, that's the issue, is if they haven't been approved, if it's pre-qualified and they're not pre-approved, if they haven't gone through the underwriting system, right? Like, there's lenders that will put a buyer completely through the underwriting system before giving them anything. It takes too long and it annoys me, but I don't know, they're thorough and you know that it's going to close, right? I'm like, just give me a pre-approval. I don't need an approval, right? Before looking at homes. That's my rule. That's my opinion. You want to show them a pre-qualification? That's fine. You want to show them with nothing? That's fine. I also have a Spider-Man rule that everybody gets one, right? So if a buyer calls me, I don't pre-qualify them over the phone. I don't ask anything. I just say, do you want to see the property? That's still available. Would you like to see it? And then I screen them at that appointment, because you do need an opportunity to get in front of people before they feel like they're being interrogated by the FBI, right? But again, that's me. That's the way I do things. You can do it however you want, but a lot of these lessons I learned the hard way, driving around people that, you know, just, I don't know, for whatever reason, they're either like to see other people's pain and waste their time, or they really thought that they could get approved, or combination of the two. I don't know, but they will completely waste your time. And I'll bet there's more than one person in here right now that's had the same thing happen, right? When you get the contract, like we said before, send it right away to the lender immediately, like literally immediately. Get the whole application started, you know, or if it's already started, get it finished, get the application in. Like, give the lender a fighting chance to actually get this thing done as soon as possible. Here it is, boom, right? Don't let you know, them falling behind be your fault. Don't give them a reason to say, oh, well, but you didn't get it to me, you know, for 4 or 5 days after. Well, why? Right? Right. Like we said before, no reason to share the inspection report. If the lender asks for it, give them something. But if the lender never asks for it, then there's no reason to bring it up. Right? There's just no reason. And loan commitment, that's a huge one. Man, I'm telling you, so I primarily deal in listings. The loan commitment gets people every single time. Not every time. Let me not say that. Many times. Loan commitment gets people a lot. And as a listing agent, I love it, and I will let you default on a loan commitment. I don't want your deposit. I don't want my seller to take your deposit, but I want that leverage. I want the leverage to know that your loan commitment time frame is passed. You didn't ask for an extension. You didn't send me an approval. You didn't tell me they were denied. You didn't do anything. So now what are we going to do? We're going to close. You have to close. Why? Because now you have nothing to get your deposit back, except if I didn't give you your full condo docs. The only one. If I didn't give you your full condo docs, but what am I going to make sure when I have a condo? Right? Within that, in the home inspection time frame, I'm going to make sure that you're also inspecting the condo docs. Right? So if I've done that, loan commitment is normally the last contingency, right, to go. Make sure your loan commitment happens before the closing date if you're writing the contract, because if you put like a 3-week closing and the loan commitment defaults at like 30 days, it doesn't really make any sense, right? I don't know. But the loan commitment is the one area to make sure that you're keeping an eye on. Negotiation tips on the mortgage side: The seller can buy down the rate, right? So if your buyer's like interest rates are high, waiting for them to come down, lenders do have, programs that they can buy down the rate. The seller can also give closing cost credits, and you can put both of those in your initial offer, right? So just keep that in mind. Appraisal, right? All right, appraisal. Number one, appraisals scare me. I said inspections are where the deal begins to fall apart sometimes, but appraisals are the other one. Inspections, a lot of times we can get through it. Appraisals, I don't know. If you get a really bad appraisal or a really low appraisal, like, I don't know, right? I don't know. You might work it out, you might not, right? Number one, usually we order these after the inspection. Not always, right? But usually I'll tell my buyers, or we'll talk to the lender and say, hey, we have 7 days to inspect, and clear it with the lender, right? Can we order this after 7 days after the inspection's done, right? Usually they'll say yes. There may be a circumstance, where they'll say no. I don't know what that circumstance would be. Ask Anna, she knows. But usually it's fine, right? Because you don't need your customer doing an inspection, finding out that, it's all cast iron pipes, the AC's, 35 years old, the roof doesn't have any straps, and it's only got 1 year of life left. So, you're going to cancel the contract, but the appraisal was just performed yesterday. Like, what's the point? Now they paid for the inspection that they'll never get that money back, but now they also paid for the appraisal, literally for no reason. So make sure it's going to get past inspection before you order the appraisal, right? Do you bring comparable sales to the appraisal? I do not always do that. There are times in my career where we've listed a house and I thought it was high and I couldn't justify the price, and somebody buys it, they put it under contract. They put it under contract, and by the time the appraisal comes up, I still can't justify the price. I'm not going to bring stupid comps, right? Like, I'm just not going to bring stupid comps. So I leave it up to the appraiser to justify the price. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. There have been times where I've been shocked, and I'm like, wow, price got justified. Wow, amazing, right? Like, in my opinion, or I don't know if this is, but the appraiser's job is to justify that price, right? So if I feel I have a strong argument for value, then I'll bring comps. Hey, look at this one, look at this one, look at this one, right? But if I don't have a strong argument, I'm not going to bring a weak argument, and I'm not going to bring a stupid argument, right? And then I'll always talk to the appraiser in that language, right? I'll always kiss the appraiser's butt, and I'll tell him, you know what, you're so smart and you're so amazing, Mr. or Mrs. Appraiser. I don't feel like I needed to bring appraisals, right? I don't feel like I need to do your job for you, right? I don't need to, right? I'll give him that argument. I'll tell him that, right? Because that appraiser needs to be my friend. If I do bring comps, I'll say, hey, I just wanted to make your life easier, right? I just want to help you along and help you do your job. Use these or not, but here they are, right? I even put some extra information in there for you. I broke down price per square foot. I put the radius, how far this is from there. I did all this work for you. If you want to use it, if you don't, hey, don't worry about it, right? Doesn't matter, right? And appraisers for certain loans have to do a visual inspection. Roof leaks, peeling paint, I don't know, other things, railings, I don't know exactly what it is, because it changes more often than I keep up with it. Rumor has it, I saw a message yesterday in WhatsApp in our chat that the appraiser's inspection is changing again, and it's getting comprehensive. Very scary. That now that's going to complicate things even further, right? But I guess we'll be talking about that as time comes. Don't tell Anna I said this, but I'm going to ask her probably to talk about it a little bit more in the future, but she doesn't know yet, so don't tell her that I said that. All right. And then results, we really only care about one number, so don't get stuck on other things, right? Is fair market value there or not? If it is, great. If it's not, then we need to go look back at some other numbers and the other comps. But, and I don't know if I've ever seen an appraiser take on a dispute and actually change their number. Usually we've had to order another appraisal from a different appraiser, right? And if you use the right lender, for some reason, some lenders have better qualified appraisers than others, so the lender does matter, in my opinion, right? So Your lower, the appraisal does come in lower. If I'm on the buyer's side, I'm negotiating that price down, right? Be careful trying, you don't want to try having the appraisal come lower because you might just kill the deal, right? And then also, a lot of people they just say cash is cash and they're going to buy the property. But you can order an appraisal for a cash offer. There is an appraisal contingency, right? And contingencies are important. If you're dealing with the buyer, contingencies are those ways that you protect your buyer, right? So maybe it's a good idea, to look at, the contingency or at the appraisal contingency and see, right? I don't know. But cash buyers and appraisal contingency would not be out of order, right? All right. Title, right? So title checks, liens, permits, they collect estoppels, tax search, right? So that they can close any liens, or they can clear any liens. They can get those paid at closing. They can clear, payoffs, whatever it needs to be, right? And then they're going to do what? They're going to give you a title commitment. If you're getting financing, if you can't get a title commitment, probably no deal, right? I mean, there's some areas where, a lender will take some exceptions, but not all, right? Talk to your lender, talk to the title company about that. The goal is to get a clear and marketable title, right? Negotiation tip on this is to add this language into your additional terms at the end of the contract. Notwithstanding the language of the contract, set forth, blah, 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 right? Copy and paste, put it in there, right? And just know that assessments that are not disclosed by the seller will be paid by the seller, regardless if it says, assessments paid by buyer. Assessments after closing will be paid by buyer. If it's not disclosed, then that falls on the seller, right? So, all right, now you're ready to close. So what do you have, right? You got the clear to close. Get the clear to close, title and lender. They're going to balance the funds, right? You're going to get a pre-settlement statement. Look it over, right? Look it over, make sure everything's in order. I go directly to page 2 because that's where commission is. And I look and I make sure my commission is correct. I would, probably an important detail. But also everything else, check for junk fees that you don't recognize. It's okay to pick up the phone, right? I've had to go over these with my customers where I've had to explain it. So make sure you understand it, right? There's 4 columns: buyer, seller, credit, debit, right? And make sure you understand what each of those means. You should know the difference between a buyer, and you should know the difference between a seller. And you should know the difference between a credit, and you should know the difference between a debit, right? One of those plus, one of those minus. Comes off that top number. Bottom numbers really, that's going to be that bottom number, whatever. Or do you go to closing? Are you going to go to closing? Should, maybe, I don't know, build a relationship, right? Do you want to get paid at closing? Right? How do you get paid at closing? Right? Here's the process in our office, how you get paid at closing. This is how you get a DA, right here. Submit all your paperwork for review 1 week before closing. Compliance will review for accuracy and completion. We might send it back if we're missing an initial, if there's an error, if there's anything. That's a good thing, right? It's a good thing to have a complete and accurate contract at the time of closing. Should have been done way sooner, but maybe the paperwork came in late, right? If all of this happens 3 days before closing, you'll get a DA, right? And then what happens with the DA? You get paid at closing. You walk away with a check, deposit it in your bank account, right? And you could deposit ours too, or we'll get it mailed to us. It doesn't matter. And then just make sure there's no junk fees on the settlement statement, right? This is why I like, if I'm on the buyer side in Broward County, I like, well, no, that's backwards here. But anyway, yeah, but review it and question anything that you don't recognize. You can call the lender, you can call the title company, right? Some of these fees you should know up front. What does the title company charge? Right? You can always, hey, I know your fee is, $850. Will you do it for $650? Right? Like at any, negotiate it, right? Do a good job for your customer. I don't know. Some fees are negotiable. I don't know about all of them, but some of them are, right? So, just make sure, you're looking at that. So calls to action, what do you need to do, based on this training? There's really not a whole lot. You know, understand and remember the negotiating. Oh, did I miss one? Oh yeah, lifetime. No. Yeah. So you know, call to action. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's wrong. I see what happened here. Sorry, we have a header wrong. Why do you get paid at closing? Okay, so this should be a lifetime client, is what this should say. This should say lifetime client. These are simple steps to make a client your lifetime client. Number one, bring a gift, right? So as I'm showing houses, throughout the entire process, I'm listening to what the customer says so that I know what I can bring them to closing, right? I remember one time, you know, the customer bought a house with a flagpole, and he was really excited to hang an American flag on his pole, right? He was like, I'm so, like, it was crazy how excited he was to have a flagpole in his front yard, right? So what did we buy him as a closing gift? I bought him a large, nice American flag, and he was so excited. Remember another customer, he bought a house, he had an acre lot, it was on the water, there was a lot of like trees and everything all around, and while we were there, we saw a machine in the back. He's like, oh, what's this? And the seller was like, oh, this keeps mosquitoes away. He goes, does it work? Works great, right? I took note of the brand and whatever, you know, whatever. I went to Amazon and I found it. It was kind of expensive, but it was also an expensive home. So I gave him that at closing, right? You know, but listen to what the customer says. Give them a gift that they will remember you by, right? I feel like every time that I don't know if it's true, but if my customer looks at the flagpole, I hope they think about me, right? When my customer's sitting in the backyard and they turn this machine on, I hope it makes them think about me, right? Bring those gifts whenever possible. It's not always possible. Some customers are dead on the inside. Don't tell them I said that, right? But it's not always possible to get a memorable gift, and sometimes you just have to give them, you know, the bottle of champagne or whatever, right? Maybe you get them a tool set, right? Somebody who, you know, that they don't have any tools. You know, we've given ladders. I mean, you know, whatever it is, but you have to be listening throughout that showing process to figure out what is a gift that this customer will use and it will be memorable, right? Get a 5-star review from them, and then keep in touch. Always think of a reason to keep in touch. If you use our CRM system, right, it'll automatically send them messages on their purchase anniversary and their birthday, right? And it'll give you notifications on these. Those are great times to reach out. Be their friend on social media, right? Like their stuff, comment on their stuff. People love engagement, right? Because we love engagement. Has anybody ever engaged on any of your content and you were pissed off, right? Probably the other way around. Nobody engaged in your content and then you were pissed off, right? Like, oh, nobody loved my kid's first day of school picture, right? And you're like, what the hell, right? Like it, and, you know, engage them. Stay in the front of their mind as their agent. I've become friends with some of my past customers, not all of them, right? But I've become friends with them to this day, like still, you know, hang out with them from time to time. That's okay. I don't become friends with them while I'm showing them a home, right? I won't necessarily, you know, become a friend with them then. I'm not going to buy you lunch, you know, because you might end up buying lunch, a whole lot of lunches for somebody that doesn't end up closing, right? I don't know, right? And then, you know, why? Because you want repeat and referral business. When they think real estate agent, they need to think about you, right? Okay, so negotiation tip. Like I said, your closing gift should be memorable. Closing gift should be memorable, right? So make sure that it's memorable. If you're going to buy them a gift, do the best you can. It doesn't mean expensive, right? Maybe it does if, you know, if it's, you know, if you're going to cash a $65,000 check, maybe it should be memorable. What do you buy for the person that has everything? I don't know. But make it something that means something to them. That doesn't always mean expensive. It just means meaningful. A thoughtful closing gift. They go a long way, right? Anniversaries, birthdays, those are all, right? So, all right, call to action. Like I said before, the number one thing you can do is read and understand the contract and riders and addenda. That is the number one thing you can do to ensure that you get from contract to closing smoothly. That you know your timeline, that you know when a contingency begins, when it ends, what are the requirements of it, right? Make sure your buyer's approved before you start showing them houses if you want, or you can just, gamble and, I don't know, show them houses and hope that they close, right? Keep an eye on your timelines. Above all, protect your client and their money. Do not ever let your client's money be in jeopardy, right? And if it is, don't ever let it be your fault that it's in jeopardy, right? We are the guards in the watchtower. It is our job to tell our customers when danger lies ahead. It is not our job to make decisions for our customers. It's not our job to force our customers to do anything. It's not even our jobs to get emotional when our customers don't do what we think that they should do. It is only our job to inform the customer. Hey, customer, here's the issue. Here's the danger that lies ahead. What do you want to do? Customer decides to go full steam ahead with danger. That's okay, right? Like that is totally, completely, 100% okay as long as you told the customer, right? Our job is to disclose, not to make decisions. It's not to get married to the outcome, right? We're here to inform. That's our job, right? We're the ringmaster, right? So as you see, there's a lot of different things going on, sometimes at the same time. And we need to make sure that our customer is focused on what they need to be focused on, and then let them make the decision. Do I care if they want the repair or the credit? I couldn't care less, right? Because it's not my decision. It's not my life. It's their decision. They're the ones who have to deal with it. I say, oh, well, I would just have them replace the AC. They say, well, no, we want $6,000 instead. I'm not going to get pissed off, right? Like, oh, how are you going to sleep at night? You don't have AC. Who cares, right? You're happy with you know the problem. You're happy with $6,000. You're a grown adult. You know what to do, right? So, but end of the day, protect your client. Just make sure you disclose everything to your client. And then at the end, make sure you keep in touch. Assuming, our emotions didn't get the best of us and, we made a complete fool of ourselves. Most of the time, our customers do enjoy hearing from us. They do like knowing that we weren't just nice to them because we were going to get a commission check at the end, right? People do like knowing that, the things that you said and the things that you did were genuine. And the way that you ensure that they get the genuine feeling is to keep in contact with them past closing, right? And then what? Then you'll get the referrals and the repeat business because they will associate you every time they think about a real estate agent. All right. That's it for this training. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts? Yeah, Carolina bought a chicken coop. I remember I saw that on Facebook, and I remember thinking Carolina bought her customers a chicken coop at closing. That's probably the coolest closing gift I think I've ever seen. I was like, wow. And then she helped put it together, if I remember right. So, and then I was thinking, maybe when I buy a house, I should buy it from Carolina, and she'll buy me a chicken coop too. Because I would like.
Yeah, Joe, I do. I have a question. What were in the very beginning? What was what's a turnover document or turnover report? What is that?
Turnover report, if I understand it right, we haven't had one. I don't think I've had one yet. But if I'm understanding it correctly, it has to do with new construction, right? So yeah, so here it is. It's homes that were built after July 1st, 2021, right? So so unless you're dealing with like newer homes, generally you don't need that. But I think it has something to do with. I think it has to do with like new construction, and it's probably something that came into effect July 1st. Has anybody run into a turnover?
From the developer to when they turn it over to the association? Is that what?
Yeah, something like that. I think I've never actually run into one, to be honest. So I'm not exactly sure. I don't think I've ever even seen one. Has anybody seen a turnover inspection report?
I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah, I think that it has to do with new construction. Yeah, from that date, July 1st, 2023. It's something that I think the developer asked to give to the buyer prior to or at closing. Probably prior to. It's probably some inspection that they have to do.
I gotcha. Okay.
But let me not speculate too much. That's just my guess on what it is, but I'm pretty sure it has to do with that. So
I have a question for you, Joe.
Mhm.
Have you heard of the new scam that there is going around with the non-bar as is contract that is being used here in Florida?
no, what is that?
I went to my friend told me about it last week. There is a scam where these agents are submitting contract. It's a non-contract, non as is contract, something like that. But it's saying that the seller has to pay like a percentage. It's crazy, but it's on.
Oh,
have you heard of it?
it's the non-as-is FAR bar.
Yes.
So that's a real contract, and it actually, and I think I talked about this. I feel like it was in the last training. I don't remember, but yeah, there's a FAR bar contract that looks almost.
But they're adding. The agents are adding something on regards to the commission, the compensation, and something that if something happens and the deal falls through, like the seller has to pay the buyer like a 10% on like they're adding this to the contract. So they're saying like, please, like my friend was telling me, like, please let other agents know, because like it comes to like maybe not us being aware. We just open and it's like, oh, okay, so it's there, like they're adding this stuff there to the contract. So I don't know, I just wanted to hear that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking of something else. I know the FAR bar, just a regular FAR bar contract, they build in inspection pre-agreed inspection percentages. So a seller will agree to pay up to 3% of the purchase price for inspection repairs, right? But that one I've not heard about that one, and yeah, and I guess that's the importance of reading the contract every time. And making sure. I mean, I know that I do when, if I'm on either side, listing or buyer side, even if you're the buyer on the buyer side, you submit the original contract. When they send it back, it needs to be fully reviewed, right? To make sure, they didn't make any changes. But no, I didn't hear about that. But yeah, that's definitely one to keep an eye on, and it's really why it's so important to make sure that we're reading the contracts. And the more you read them, the more you realize you'll get to know them, and you'll be able to pick up the issues very, very quickly. For example, the verbiage that we put in there on additional terms, at one point we were getting ready to put that verbiage in there, and we were like, wait a second, that's not the right paragraph. So we had to go back and find and change the paragraph, because they had changed the contract, and then it caused that paragraph to be moved when they changed the contract. So, it's really important. Every time, man, read the contracts front to back, top to bottom, know what's in the paragraphs. If you don't know, pop in with us, and, we can help you understand it, or, explain it. I think nobody knows contracts better than our transaction coordinator team, because they just deal with them all day, every day. That's what they do. They review them. They even write them from time to time. They prepare addenda, like everything. So, if you're not sure, you know, run it by us, and we're happy to do it. I guess the unfortunate thing is once it's signed, it's signed. But then at that point, if you find something in there, you've got to find a way either to get it removed and everybody agree to remove it, or to just get out of the contract altogether. Because there's a lot of unscrupulous individuals out there. Anybody else have anything before we end here?
Yeah, Joe, I have a question about the earnest money deposit that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Would it be a good policy to only hand in the wiring instructions to your clients in person, so that they don't get accustomed to opening up emails with wiring instructions?
You can. you could do that. Yeah. The only thing with that is I know that there's times, so there's certain title companies that they do certain things where like the wire instructions will actually change, or they'll have, you know, different things. So you want to make sure, I mean, if you do that, you want to make sure that all of the information is still accurate and correct, because, you know, what if they change the bank accounts and, you know, like, let's say you got it for, you know, one transaction. And then, you know, you wouldn't want to just give that to another customer. Some title companies won't let you do it. I don't know. So for me personally, I wouldn't want to take that liability on me. Like, I like to do my job, but I don't like to do other. I'll tell you, I learned this lesson the hard way. So this doesn't have to do with an escrow deposit. It has to do with an association application. I used to drop off condo association applications for my customers. I would have them review it. They'd cut me the check, and I'm like, oh, full service agent, I'm going to go do this for you. But I remember this one time, there were 3 people moving in, and you know, so we all met. I told them what to bring. They all brought it, and I, you know, reviewed it quickly. I went to drop it off, and you know, these people look at these all day, so they're like, oh, this is missing, this is missing, this is missing. Okay, so I go back, and I'm like, hey, I need to get these. So I go meet these people individually, and I go grab their stuff, and I drop it off, and there's still something missing. And it was in Davie, right? I think I lived in Coral Springs at the time. And I'm like, and I'm driving like Plantation. I'm driving all over the place, right? So from that point forward, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let the buyers, just from now on, the buyers are going to turn their stuff in, right? The buyers are going to be the one to do this. So to me, it's kind of the same thing with the earnest money deposit. I would let the title company handle it, and just make sure that you know, as long as you educate your buyers, right? You would say, hey, you know, here's going to be the process. I'm going to put you with this title company. Here's what they're going to do. But even though you receive this, I still need you to make sure to call me and the title company and confirm that these are actually the correct details, right? If somebody didn't do something, because man, with AI and with everything out there now, like, there's new scams popping up all the time, right? There's new things that pop up all the time. So, you know, we may not even know about the newest scam that's out there happening right now, right? There could be something. So, you know, but put, again, right, we're the guards in the watchtower. So it's our job to tell them about the danger. It's their job to avoid the danger, right? Here's what can happen. Here's how you avoid the danger. Make sure you do this. Hey, and then, you know, the title company can tell you, hey, we just sent them an email. Call them up, right? Hey, they just sent you an email. Keep an eye out for it. Call the title company first before you send it. Make sure it's them. Here's their phone number. This is their only phone number. If anybody calls you from a different phone number, it's not them, right? Like, you know, do those things. Be, you know, over-explain. You know, be overly cautious. But I think, to me, doing things that are meant for somebody else to do it, I think that just kind of leads to a little bit of exasperation on my end, at least.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense. Probably doesn't, but I hope it does. Does anybody else have any questions, any thoughts?
No, I don't think so. Thanks, Joe.
All right, no problem. I hope this was informative. I hope it was helpful. I hope the tips were helpful. Those are things that we do to you know, to protect our customers and just give the transaction a little bit more likelihood that it's actually going to close, right? Because that's what we want, right? We want to have the highest probability of success in a transaction. Like, that's the goal. So win-win-win. Every agent should be happy. Every customer should be happy. Every lender, every title, everybody should be happy by the end. If you get to a closing table and literally everybody is happy at that closing table at the time of closing, then you know you did a really, really good deal, right? If you get to the closing table and people are unhappy, maybe you didn't do a bad deal, but, you know, maybe there was room for improvement. Or it could just be the agent on the other side and there's nothing more you could have done, right? But the goal is always to have everybody happy and smiling at closing, right? Not that the buyer and seller should be in the same room at closing, because we always avoid that. We don't until the closing is done, I don't want the buyer and seller meeting or talking. But after closing, if they can shake hands and be friends, that's amazing to me. And that has happened where buyer and seller have become friends after closing. They've exchanged numbers in case the buyer has a question, right? But not until the paperwork is done, right? Because it's not over till everything is signed, and really the money hits the account. So that's all we have here. Roundtable Mastermind session next week. I think that's going to be September 2nd. So we are doing it. I know September 1st is a holiday, but we're doing it September 2nd. We are one of the things that I would like to talk about are these some of these new proposals that are coming through with the appraisals. So hope you all are there. Bring your questions. Don't stay stuck. If you need anything in the meantime, you guys know where to find us. We're in the lobby room. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you then.
Thanks, Joe.
Right. So these are where this matters, right? But make sure that you're using the appropriate. I'll tell you what, man. This document is probably the most important document in the entire contract. Why? Because this document is how we get paid. So if you get this wrong or if you miss it, you better hope the agent on the other side or the broker on the other side is nice and friendly, or maybe just doesn't know the difference, right? Because if you've missed that, then you've missed something, right? So coming back, when you finish your contract, always go through this. Always look at this, and you'll know, oh, lead-based paint. I better look up how old this house is, right? Oh, housing for older persons. I better put that, right? So just make sure, and then not everything's in here, right? Like a 1031 exchange, I think there's a rider for that, or there's something for a 1031 exchange. There used to be, right? So you've got your contract and you've got everything. Now what do you need to do? You need to make sure you have your proof of funds or your pre-approval, right? So part one, we talked about the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. Know the difference. But in here, there's a reason why we get them, because we have to send that with the offer. If I get a cash offer and there's no proof of funds, then to me, it's not a complete offer. If I get a finance offer, but the lender pre-approval is not attached, to me, it's not a complete offer. Because before we would even, as a listing agent, before I would even accept an offer for finance, I would call the lender. Right? And I would say, is this a qualification or an approval? I want an approval, right? A pre-qualification may also be a non-starter. A pre-qualification, it doesn't do anything, right? Like it runs their credit and then it takes a verbal application and that's it. So, make sure that, these are things probably you should get up front. As a buyer's agent, I would recommend it. If you're showing desktop underwriter. Yeah, that is really the ideal situation. Have they been run through DU? Have you run them through DU? Yes, they have. Okay. Can you send me that? Some lenders will send that to you, right? Oh, and keep in mind, buyer's agent, that there's an addendum in the FAR bar as is that tells the lender that they are to disclose anything that has to do with the mortgage or the buyer's ability to obtain the mortgage with the listing agent. So if the listing agent calls the lender can't say, I'm not going to tell you that, or I can't tell you that, because the buyer and seller both signed agreeing to that. So, again, it all boils down to read the contract so you don't look stupid. If you know what's in there, and I've had agents that have absolutely put barriers up and tried to get me, as the listing agent, to not talk to the lender. And I've even had agents that have emailed me and told me that I am absolutely forbidden to reach out. Actually, it was a broker. It was a broker owner that we did this deal with. And this broker owner forbade me, is that the right word? I don't know, from reaching out to the lender. And then so I responded basically, so are you as the agent unilaterally going over your buyer's head and the contract that your buyer signed and agreed to that allows me to reach out to the lender? Are you telling me that I cannot, right? Because an agent cannot make decisions or change things that both parties have not. So know the contract so you know what you can do, right? And she never made that argument again. But yeah, that one was a crazy one. I'll tell you, that might be one of the craziest deals I've ever done. Know your stuff, because I can't tell you this was a broker that we were working with and how much this broker did not know about the contract, right? I assume this broker probably never read the contract. Not a good thing if you're a broker. Okay, other thing, right? So we talk about, filling out the contract and how that's going to look, make you look better. Well, the entire package, right? Like, I don't know. I know that when I was working, really actively with buyers, there would be agents, and I'm not even kidding, not making this up. They would compliment me on the offer and how I sent it, how complete and thorough the contract is with the proper writers, with everything, the documentation, everything that's necessary. That makes a difference. If they're between, if they've got two very similar offers, yours and another one, and yours is better written, and you have a better presentation of the offer, that might be the thing that makes the difference, because they know, or they assume, that by working with you, you understand the contract, you sent everything, you understand what a complete contract looks like, that it's probably going to be an easier transaction than this other person that maybe didn't send such a thorough or well-written contract, right? Maybe they put escrow, they filled in the 3, so the agent's like, okay, well, maybe this person doesn't know what they're doing, right? I don't know, maybe not, right? All right, so you've gone through, you've submitted it, you have a clean, concise contract that you submitted to to the other agent. And what happens, because it looks so amazing, it looks so beautiful, you did so good on the CMA and pricing and valuing this property that your offer got accepted, right? So, but your work's not done, right? Like, and actually, this is really the part where the real work begins. Looking at houses, showing houses, writing contracts, negotiating them. In my opinion, that's kind of the fun part, right? Everybody likes to look at houses. It's always fun, right? You can, and it's always interesting. You always see the things that you see when you're looking at houses, like, you won't see that anywhere else. A lot of fun, but your job's not done, right? You need to make sure now, okay, you got the contract back from the listing agent. Now you need to look over the contract, or have the transaction coordinator be a second set of eyes for you, right? So this is what you do next. Most important, make sure that you have an actual effective contract, right? Effective meaning everybody has signed and initialed next to every term and every line and every box that needs to be signed. If corrections were made, then initials need to be next to that. It doesn't really matter if the correction was made and like it was initialed somewhere else on that sheet, like later down the road. I don't know if you know what I mean by this, but if there's a change, just have it initialed. Just get it initialed, right? Make sure both sides initial next to it, right? Check the boxes to make sure that your addenda is included with the contract. That's really important. If you didn't check the box, I don't know, is that rider really part of the contract? Maybe it's arguable that it is, but let's not argue about it. Let's just check the box, right? Send everything to the lender. Here's the contract. Get that started, right? Like, don't assume that the listing agent did it. Don't assume that the buyer knows to do it. Make sure the lender has it. Start it right away. Here you go. Boom. Let's go. Looking forward to this. Buyer, you ready to do your inspection? Better do that right away, right? After the inspection's done, then you can order the appraisal. I mean, you can order it before if you want. I wouldn't recommend it, because if it falls apart at inspection and then they have the appraisal done in the meantime, then not only did they lose their inspection money, but they also lose the appraisal money. Right? So inspection, clear it, or get very close to clear it, then order the appraisal. The rest of the mortgage process can continue. Not having an appraisal does not hold up the mortgage process. Right? HOA and condo docs for review. Remember, 3 days to review it. Get those to your buyer. Make sure that they read them for what? Remember the things that they need to make sure of. The things that you called the association and ensured were in fact true. Right? The pet policy, the parking policy, the rental policy. Review them. Make sure. I've seen it where buyers haven't reviewed these policies and they ended up regretting it later. Right? Get the application in. What's your timeline on the association application? Make sure that's done on time. And then make sure the escrow is done on time too. Right? Again, these timelines, we watch them like a hawk. Why? Because that's where deposits are lost. Deposits are not lost unless the timeline is missed. Right? If you follow through and you get it done and everything's done on time and everything's done right, then they retain their deposit. But if you miss the timeline, imagine like, you know, the buyer, you know, something happens and, you know, you find out that, well, they, you know, your buyer didn't make their escrow deposit, you know, until day 7. Right? Like, what is that? You know, what's the implications of that? I don't know, right? But don't miss the timelines. Escrow is very, very important. And we all know, right? Don't, you know, make sure our customers know, don't wire any money without first verifying who it's going to. Right? Like, make sure you're talking to your customer about that. This has been a big thing for like over a decade. That, you know, so our emails are extremely secure. We have 2-factor authentication, like it's mandatory. You can't even use your email unless that's set up. Like, it won't even let you log in until you set that up. But not everybody has that, right? And what happens is emails get hacked, and the hacker just watches the emails, watches the transactions, and then they find a way to stir up some panic, right? And then an email goes out that looks like it's from the agent, and it goes to the buyer. I need you to wire money to this account right away, right? Go right now. Go do it. Don't whatever, right? I don't know what they look like. I don't know. It's never happened to me, knock on wood. And it should never happen to one of our customers because we should inform them. Do not wire money without verifying where it goes first, right? And then they wire it. And once that money is wired, it's gone, man. It's gone. I don't know. Do people ever get it back? I don't know. I've literally spoken to agents who this has happened to. They've said, this has happened to me. And I'm like, oh, that sucks, right? Because if it happened to me, I would feel like I might need to somehow reimburse that customer with that money. And, you know, those wires are not always insignificant amounts. You know, even $6,000 or $7,000, you wouldn't want to have to reimburse that just because you didn't have a disclaimer on your email or just because you didn't tell the customer to verify over the phone, right? So you're in the watchtower. Make sure your customer knows all of the danger that lies ahead. Now, if your customer proceeds after you've warned them about the danger and they proceed and they get slaughtered, well, that's their own fault, right? But if you led them into the slaughter or you knew that danger lies ahead and you didn't say anything, questionable, whose fault is it, right? Updates. It is my job as the agent to make sure that my customer knows what's going on with their purchase. Even if there is no update. What is your schedule? What is your calendar on how frequently you update your customer? If I haven't spoken to you for how long am I going to go before I give you an update that there is no update? That is the most important thing, because if your customer has to ask you for an update, then you have failed. Right? Hey, what's going on with my purchase? Oh, nothing going on. Okay, cool. Right? But they still had to ask. They shouldn't have to ask. Right? Number one, send that timeline to everybody. Get everybody in agreement. TCs love to do this back and forth. TCs also love to find mistakes in the other TC stuff. Right? So if they have a TC, make sure your timelines are correct, because more than once, you know, they come back and, you know, they want to be the hero for their agent. So they, they do that. Make sure your customer has the timeline. Make sure your customer understands the timeline. Very important. Read the contract, understand the contract, read the timelines, understand the timelines, right? Escrow letter important. We do a weekly update. Nothing going on. That's your update. Cool. Moving on, right? Just waiting to close. There's your update. Cool. Moving on. Want to close early? No? All right. Then we're waiting, right? Anything urgent? Right away. It's urgent. It's urgent. It's urgent. If it's urgent, that means you do it right away. Drop everything, do it right away. Just take care of it. Get stuff done. And then follow-up is really important. Make sure everything's on time. Make sure everything's on track. Mr. Inspector, where's my report? Mr. Lender, are we looking good? Are we going to get an approval? Where are we at? Right? Where are we at with things? Make sure. Right? Again, all of these, all of the contingencies, all of your timelines, everything, track them. Track your timelines, right? Track deadlines and get updates early or extensions early. Extend early. Don't wait for an extension to come, to pass or to be that same day. Hey, we were supposed to get the loan commitment today, but we can't get it. I need an extension. Well, what if the buyer or what if the other party's out of town and they can't sign it? Well, now you only have one choice, really. You just send over a cancellation. And then you have to say, I don't want to cancel, but because I wasn't proactive on this, I need to send an extension and a cancellation. Maybe the other side wants to cancel. And because we didn't pay attention to the timeline, that property was lost, right? And that would be what? That would be unprofessional, right? So make sure that we are being professional and doing these things. A professional knows the contract, a professional knows the deadlines, a professional knows the consequences of not knowing the contract or the deadlines, right? This is our job. Lead generate, lead follow-up, going on appointments, writing and negotiating contracts, right? That's our job. If we can't do those, then we're not doing our job. And if we're really not doing them every day, then it may not be our full-time job, right? Lead generate, lead follow-up, go on appointments. Those should be pretty much every day, Monday through Friday, or maybe Tuesday through Sunday. I don't know, whatever your days of the week are. Take some days off. Everybody needs a day off, 2 days off. Take some rest. This isn't your life, right? This is your career, but not your life. But those things need to happen. If they're not happening, then we're not doing our jobs, right? Our job is not to run errands. Our job is not to get groceries. Our job is not to mop the floors. Our job is not to take a nap. Our job is not to have a glass of wine at 1 o'clock in the afternoon because you don't have any appointments. Our job is lead generate, lead follow, go on appointments, write, negotiate contracts. First two mandatory every day. If you do the first two every day, then the third one will follow. If you go on enough appointments, the fourth one will follow, and if you write enough contracts, the fifth one, closing those deals, will follow. It's a numbers game. How good are you? All right. So what's the call to action for this training? This is really simple. Like this one is the easiest one. Some people have probably already done this. Number one, to get the most out of this training, you need to read and understand all contracts, riders, and addenda. Read and understand them. That's it. Reading comprehension. Read them, understand them. And number two, make sure you have a system for every transaction. So namely, just use our transaction checklist on every transaction. Track your own transactions. Even if you have a transaction coordinator, it's still your transaction, right? So you still need to, follow up and keep an eye on your transaction. So, but follow that transaction checklist. Follow your customers' timelines. Follow, your customers' contingencies. Don't let things fall between the cracks, and don't trust that a transaction coordinator is going to catch every single thing. Review your contracts. right? They are a second set of eyes. They are not the only set of eyes. So next training, we're going to talk about some negotiating tips. We're going to talk about closing the deal, and then we're going to talk about post-closing. So again, don't know how many of these we're going to squeeze into the next training. This could be a 3-part or a 4-part series. I'm actually really excited about the training that we have coming up after that, right? It's going to take us back to some of the basics, but I think for agents that are kind of stuck, hopefully it will help them to get unstuck, and it's going to introduce them to some of the philosophies and concepts of this brokerage, hopefully a little bit better. So that being said, does anybody have any questions, thoughts, comments, or concerns of anything that they've heard today or have not heard today? Go ahead, Lorna.
Joe, I have a question. I know you were talking about, I kind of possibly missed a few of it. You were talking about in the contract, right? So I know that as a list, if we have the listing, we can't ask for any financial information from the buyer's lender, but they are based on the agreement between the seller and buyer and based on what's in the contract. We can have a conversation about how the loan is progressing, what's going on with the loan, where we are, conditions to be met, yada, 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 right? That's what I know over the years. However, I remember there was this one situation and there was this, just like you were saying, their agents saying, oh, you cannot reach out, you cannot this, you cannot that. Now, I saw Irene put something up that says, I think you texted Irene, you said you cannot email the lender. You're not allowed to email the lender. Can you touch a little bit on that piece?
Yeah, was there something in this? So there was something on this screen that said we cannot email the lender in this training?
No, I think I mean Irene, MX administrator. Was this from you, Irene? Somebody wrote a message
No,
that says you're not allowed to email the lender.
Yep, that was me, Lorna. But what I'm trying to say is that was what we received from the agent. We cannot email the lender.
Got it.
Yeah. Sorry.
My bad.
It was
Okay,
a-
no
it
worries.
was a
I was like,
misunderstanding.
I was like, oh, did something change? Because I did not know that. I thought you could text, you could call, you could email. Okay, good. So nothing changed. Okay, perfect. But however,
Yeah.
there was this one time in this transaction, and the lender specifically said, I am not allowed unless the buyer signs off on something and tell me that I'm allowed. And we're like, no, you are allowed. You have to discuss. And he refused to give any kind of information about the loan. And this was the lender.
Yeah, and you know, that's a really tough situation to be in. Irene, I don't know if you can find the as is and exactly where that is in there. We can put that paragraph up. Because I've run into that more than once in a transaction where the lender or the agent tells me, yeah, the lender will say, I can't give you any information about that. Or the agent will say, yeah, they'll just flat out say, don't reach out to the lender for anything. You do not have permission to do it. I wish we would have put those emails out, man. This broker was so like, she just looked so dumb. This one was like a moment of glory. And she actually, the lender actually, by the end, was, on our side, and we were the listing side. But yeah, so in the contract, if we can find it, I don't know the verbiage exactly. Yeah, financing, here it is. So buyer shall, upon written request, keep seller and broker fully informed about the status of buyer's mortgage loan application, loan processing, appraisal, and loan, right? So upon written request,
Buyer authorized buyer's mortgage broker lender and that to get the status and progress and release. See? So
Right.
That's it right there.
right. So they can't give any, specifics on, finance or, personal, identifying information. But yeah, it's right there. So number one, the buyer has to keep you informed. Right. But number two, yeah, like right here, that's why I told the broker, this is why I told her, I said, so are you unilaterally revoking your buyer's permission to us in paragraph 8.2 that we can reach out to them, right? Because an agent cannot unilaterally revoke permission. This right here permits, right? A buyer authorizes buyer, buyer's mortgage broker,
Right.
lender, and closing agent to disclose such status, right? So, and right here, as appropriate and allowed to seller and broker. If within, right? So, and then it goes on to say more, but this is why knowing the contract is important. Because in that case, I just said, oh, okay. And I outlined, I said, here's where it is. Right?
But the lender would not budge, Joe. He would not budge. It's like it's in the contract. You are supposed to be giving us updates on what's going on with the loan. We don't know what's going on with the loan. He refused. No, we need written, but it's in the contract. You are supposed to.
Yeah, and that's a really tough one because lenders are kind of outside of our window. Although I'm sure, and I don't, the thing is like not being a broker, and I guess we could call a mortgage broker, or not being a mortgage broker, I should say, we could call a lender and probably find out what's the recourse, but I imagine they have to follow the contracts just like we do, right?
Yeah.
Like we can't act unilaterally outside of the contract. Well, neither can the lender, and neither can, the title company. I caught a title company one time because buyer chose title and we were on the listing side and we got into an argument, and the title agent in there said, we represent the buyer in this. It was in writing. And I was like, wait a second, did I just, and so I emailed back and I was like, did I just read that correctly? So you are representing, so I was like, who's representing the transaction?
Exactly.
And then the attorney jumped in and was like, whoa, no, we don't represent the buyer. Right? So understanding that the escrow agent on page 1 isn't necessarily the title company that's going to do the closing. And that page 1 is just who's holding escrow. So it's all of these little nuances, but then we have to decide what's in our client's best interest. Is it in our client's best interest for us to make this argument, right? Like you have to choose your battles. And I will, sometimes I love a good pissing match, right? Where it's like, okay, yeah, you know what, you're stupid, and I'm going to make sure people know that you don't know what you're doing. Or sometimes I'm like, okay, you know what? It's more important that we just get this closed for my customer than for me to, flex my ego and my knowledge. And this is where us as professionals really need to use that discernment. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That lender, I don't know why the lender acted like that. And that at that point, we have to figure out, okay, how important is this to my customer's side of the transaction that I need to push back? Or sometimes, the battle, not fought is what the battle best won, something like that.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it's better just not to have the fight, but that's where we have to figure that, those things out. I think the one with the other broker, I was probably more having a pissing match than anything because this person was extremely unpleasant from like the get-go. So I was like, and then the lender didn't like her too. So I was like, okay, but I don't know if that should even be in this recording. Maybe that should be. But that one was like, it was just hilarious to me. I remember we would just sit back and laugh at that one. But but
they were just being shady and everything. And you said it right. The issue is when also agents don't know, because we are supposed to be advising and counseling and directing our buyers and sellers. And you're right. If it is like in a situation like that, the buyer's agent should have said, listen, no, the contract says it. They're right. She's right. we have to disclose. You can't disclose your financial business, like your salary and stuff like that. They can't disclose, but the lender is authorized to give instructions because the seller needs to know what's happening, and they are authorized to update the listing agent on what's going on. But when people don't know, and this is what happens. Not everybody, and you could tell from day one that the agent didn't really know what they were doing, and so because a lot of filling in had to happen for the agent because they were just lacking in a lot of ways, and so they just made the transaction harder because of that, and then they weren't directing their buyer in the best way.
Yeah, and that's it. And the other thing is, that doesn't build a trusting environment.
Yeah.
So again, like, this is not our transaction. This is not our goal. This is not our dream. This is our customer's transaction. This is our customer's goal. This is our customer's dream, right? So if we don't understand the contract and we act outside of the contract, we're not acting in their best interest, because they signed the contract, and if we did a good job, they should understand the contract. Number two, if a successful deal is one where the buyer walks away happy and where the seller walks away happy. If your deal gets contentious, then somebody did something wrong, or somebody is doing something wrong, right? Understandably so, the buyer and seller are at opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Buyer wants to buy for the least amount of money, wants to pay as little at closing as possible. Seller wants to make the most amount of money and wants as much money in their bank account at closing as possible, right? But there's no reason why we can't come together and come to terms that are satisfactory for everybody. And when you have these pissing matches here about, that's why I'm saying choose wisely if you're going to take on that fight or not. Sometimes it's, it doesn't matter, like, whatever. But other times it's like, well, I'm just going to choose not to fight that battle, because it's my customer is more important, and how my customer feels is more important than, me proving that I'm right or me proving that I'm smart. Like, we don't make contention where it doesn't need to be. Now, if there's a reason that you need to know what's going on with the lender, then yeah, push on it. If it can be let go, I say let it go. But it's all about, like, there's really should be no greater ally in a transaction than the other agent, right? In fact, actually, everybody in that transaction should be your ally, because we are both working in the best interest of both customers to get this transaction closed, right? I want a happy buyer, and I want a happy seller, and I want the lender happy, and I want the title company happy, and I want the other agent happy. I want everybody happy. If I'm causing division and strife and, frustration, I'm not really doing my job effectively, right? And then the other thing is, it's a small real estate world. So if, as an agent, we do something stupid, chances are we might run into that other agent again, because, most, producing agent does a majority of the transactions. You got a lot of onesie twosie agents, you might not run into them again. But, if you got somebody that does, 20, 30 transactions a year, it's quite likely you're going to run into that person somewhere down the road, and they're going to remember, and I've run into difficult agents, and I will tell my customer, this person is difficult. Just know going into this that this person right here is a difficult person. So just know it, right? And then just know that if you run into that agent again, they're going to go tell their customers. So that's why we cannot be like that. We cannot, right? We're professionals through and through. We know the contract. We know when to dig our heels and fight. And we also know, when it's better to just walk away and live to fight another day, right? But it's always about the customer, never about us. And it's always about, getting this, achieving whatever it is that the customer wants to achieve. Not our dream, not our home. It's not for us. So, anything else to add to that, or does anybody else have anything, any questions, thoughts, concerns, comments? All righty. Well, that concludes our second in our series, how to be an effective buyer's agent. Next week is going to be another roundtable week, so I hope to see everybody there. This, and this is where we would talk about if that were a problem live and in person. Hey, I'm dealing with the lender, and maybe I don't have all the answers, but that's why we have other agents in the room that can give us answers. We had one of our agents at the last one, that Asia. She was given some mastermind tips on doing cold calling, how she does listing presentations. If you guys missed that one, you missed a good one. That one was, I was like, wow, like Asia took that one to the next level. I wish she came to way more of those because she had a lot of value to add. That was amazing. Other than that, shameless plug. Oh, remember this. So if you're ever wondering how you can make more money in real estate, this is really important. For me even. It's really important for me because we want to grow as a brokerage. But it's also important for you. If you ever wondering how to make more money in real estate without having to sell so many houses, it's through our REAP Rewards program, right? If you sponsor an agent, right? If you give an agent this QR code and say, hey, come check out this brokerage, this is where I work. That agent now goes under, you, and every time that agent has a sale, you get 10% of that. So what I would say is if you bring an agent in, you should also work to help that agent get more transactions or convert at a higher rate. And when they do convert and they get a contract, you should also help them to sell that property. And the reason being is because there's money in it for you too, right? So, and I definitely want to talk about this more down the road, but we've got a few agents in our brokerage that have sponsored, more than one person. They brought in more than one agent. Well, it shouldn't end there. I mean, obviously we're going to help them. That's part of our onboarding process, and that's part of what we're working on to improve, is to help get agents more productive. But at the same time, there is a benefit to the sponsoring agent to keep in touch with that other agent and make sure that they're actually converting leads, they're actually doing things, because when they have a closing, then you also get money, right? You get part of our split. So that is one way, is bring in agents and help them. We are working on the downline math to make it more competitive and advantageous. That'll roll out someday. I don't know when. We just have to make sure we do it the right way because it's a little complicated. But just keep that in mind. REAP Rewards. You can send them the QR code, and then we'll reach out to them from there. But really, that's it. Our next Ask the Broker is in 2 weeks. That's going to be on the 26th. That's where we're going to do part 3 of the buyer's journey, how to be an effective buyer's agent. I hope to see you guys all there. That one's going to be probably kind of good because we're going to talk about negotiating and those strategies. So we went way over on time. I hate going over on time. Thank you all for bearing with me, sticking around through the end of this and listening to me ramble, because I can do that a lot, as I'm doing right now. Hope to see you all soon. Don't stay stuck. You know what a lobby room is. If we can ever do anything for you, please don't hesitate to tell us. Thank you all.